What's going on, guys? Another quick one here for y'all today. Also, I'm gonna be going live with my boy Cap King Casso later today. Talk about some of the same stuff. Uh, with the true, I guess you could say, natives of this land called Turtle Island, occupied Turtle Island, aka North America, aka the Caribbean, South America, all that. But in this video, I just wanted to ask y'all a simple question because a lot of the times it's like, in the educational system, we're taught how to learn we're taught to like learn to take a test. You know what I'm saying? If that makes sense. We're taught to learn how to pass a test, basically. I guess you could say is the best way to put that, or a better way to put that. So what do I mean by that? Like when we read a piece of information in class, we're looking for answers that are going to be on a multiple choice test. We're looking for the multiple choice answers in the book, and we're looking for the important points, the things that we're not looking at whether this logically makes sense or not. We're looking at what's going to be on the test, and then when the test comes, when you get the question right, that reinforces that that's the truth or fact in your brain. But in actuality, that's just regurgitating information that you've been fed. There's been no real analytical analysis of what you were studying, other than the fact that you were able to pass this test that the people who are indoctrinating you are giving you. Why do you think the government controls the curriculum? Shout out to all my teachers out there, my friends that are teachers and everything. But for a fact, you don't make the curriculum. You teach what they, you know what I'm saying? You teach your students to get ready for the test that the government mandates they have to take. Okay? So that's one point. So we have to look at things we have to go back and look at things in a sense of not trying to pass some multiple choice test or, get a high SAT score or, the IQ test. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to look at it as, does it make sense? So when you're talking about a slave trade in this country, you talk about, okay, first of all, let's look at the story of the Pilgrims, right? When all the white folks came over here, this is what you learned in school too. I'm not just telling you this is what you learned in school, right? The natives taught the Pilgrims how to farm, right? Because these people coming from Europe didn't have experience working with the crops and shit over here, right? So they had to be taught how to farm by the natives, okay? So I already told you what down there in Hispaniola, which is Haiti and Dominican Republic, what Columbus thought of the natives. They were very friendly. It would only take 50 men for them to subjugate all of them, right? So in that vein, that's why he enslaved them, because they're already experts at their crops, their crops that they're farming and everything that's already on their land. So that's why he enslaved them. Now, the reason why the transatlantic slave trade had to happen like that, and I'm not saying it happened exactly the way they said it did, but I'm saying the reason why they needed slaves from somewhere else other than the native people is because they slaughtered and murdered them all on Hispaniola. I talked about the priest that documented the fact that they had came over there. When they arrived at Hispaniola, there were 3 million people, natives and Spaniards put together or whatever. There were 3 million people on Hispaniola when they got there, including themselves. And at the point of, he was writing that a few years later, the island was literally down to 300 people. So I say all that to say this. When you look at American slavery, it doesn't make sense to go pull 12 million people from another country and put them here in this country and expect them to know how to operate, how to farm the crops, cotton, corn, etc. The lay of the land, you know what I mean? Like, you can go, if you go colonize, the Arctic somewhere, with the Eskimos, you think you're gonna bring some slaves from Africa to go, hunt seals and shit? Like, that's not gonna work, because that's not what that's not what they're built for. That's not what they're used to doing. Now, if you go there and enslave the Eskimos who've already been hunting seals their entire existence, then of course they're going to be experts at it, and they can do that way better than you. So my point is, looking at slavery from an economic standpoint, number one, it doesn't make sense to risk, because when we talk about the perils of a transatlantic voyage, especially if you look at the slave ships and how they apparently or allegedly had the slaves, lined up stacked on top of each other, stacked next to each other, balled up. Like that's not really that's not a survivable condition. Even the conservative numbers say the death toll would have been at least 50% on every voyage, because you got to think about so if you're telling me you have a boat full of slaves and crew, forget the food. Think about the amount of fresh water you would have to sustain all of these people for the months it took to make that voyage. We know the voyage was possible, but not in those conditions. Because it's hard enough just being an actual member of the crew, eating right, avoiding scurvy, staying hydrated, right? But if you're a slave shackled next to if you're a slave shackled next to other slaves, like touching each other slaves, and then there's layers and layers of slaves stacked on top of you, number one, the disease is going to spread like wildfire. And just overall, if I'm, depressed from being taken away from my home and my family, you're going to have to make me survive. You know what I'm saying? You're going to have to, like Killmonger say, bury me with my ancestors who jumped off the ships. You know what I'm saying? That, and you're going to have to force me to eat, force me to drink. We hunger striking out here. So I'm not saying it didn't happen, but what I'm saying is the logic of it doesn't make sense from a business perspective, because if I'm coming to Turtle Island, America, there's already millions of people here that are already experts at farming and working the land. So from my perspective, it would be a no contest as far as who I would want to, enslave if I, had to, if I was these people. And that goes back to Albright Middle School, where Mr. Brown assigned us a paper where we had to basically talk about the slave master's point of view. And obviously I had a lot of problems with doing it, but I had to do it anyway. But when you put yourself in that frame of mind, it's like, okay, well, if there's already millions of people here in this country that are already experts in what you want them to do, wouldn't it make sense to, invade, which they did, and capture a bunch of prisoners of war and force them to, take their land, but I'm going to continue forcing you to work your land. You know what I'm saying? Or we can act like there's some type of deal on the table where I'm going to pay you for your crop, but I never do, or I pay you little to nothing. Because remember, when Columbus was in Hispaniola, he was trading little small beads for hella cotton. You know what I'm saying? He was trading, little small trinkets for hella cotton and raw materials and resources, which is why they, you know what I'm saying? Why you think he made 3 voyages? Or did Columbus make 4 voyages or 3 voyages? So either way, he made multiple voyages funded by, Spain and then Portugal, because it was profitable. You see what I'm saying? So that's all I'm saying is, like, the official story tells you, well, I don't want to say official story, because I'm just saying the narrative that we're taught only, it even goes into the fact that 95% of the people taken from Africa were taken to South America or, the Caribbean. So even if I'm accepting the story that I'm being handed, only 5% of the 12.5 million allegedly taken from Africa even made it to America in the first place. So ooh, damn, big ass wasp just flew by my head. But anyway, so if that's the case, how can you, I'm not gonna lie, like, when something fly by your head and you see it and like make eye contact, it's like, all right, just be cool, don't bother me, I won't bother you. But that shit was huge. I forgot what I was saying. But anyway, man, we got a lot of work to do as a people, just, figuring out our individual lineages. Because, you could very well find out, you could very well do your ancestry and find out, hey, your family did come over here by force or whatever from Africa. But, and it's nothing wrong with, from your part, you didn't, you know what I'm saying? You didn't do nothing to deserve that. But I'm just saying, the narrative is that every black person you see came over here based off of slave ships, unless they can, tell you, no, my family came from Africa, 2-3 generations ago or whatever like that. You're looked at as if you're a descendant of the slave. And what we're seeing is a lot of people, so-called black people, are doing their lineage, doing their ancestry, and they don't come from slaves. They come from landowners. They come from people that were here before, the colonization of Turtle Island, aka North America. But yeah, I mean, the narrative, that's, we have to just look at things for what they are sometimes. We have to look at things for what makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, it's not always what we're being told. Because, think about it, the UFO situation, right? And I'm not going to dive into all of that right now, but I'm just going to say, you know, earlier this year, like a month or two ago, the government came out and confirmed the existence of UFOs or whatnot, right? So before that, they did that, there was millions of people out there that were just adamant that these things don't exist. And the reason, and the primary reason is because there's been no confirmation from the government. So the point is, even before that, it's like, okay, you're looking at all these people telling you what they're seeing and you're thinking they're all just lying and making it up. Yeah, some of them are, but is it really realistic for everybody to just be making this up? And then on top of that, throughout ancient history, before there was, writing on paper, they were carving extraterrestrial stories in stone and shit. So it's like, do you think those people were writing fiction on stones or what? Because, so point being is you can't believe everything you're just told because people, the governments have agendas. There's a reason they didn't want to tell you about UFOs. There's a reason why they won't tell you what they know about UFOs. They're just telling you, okay, they exist now because too many people are seeing them. There's too much video proof of them. You know what I'm saying? So they're going to go ahead and tell you that they exist, but they don't want to tell you, the ins and outs of it. Where are they coming from? Who's on them? What's our relationship to them? And I mean, these answers are really out there too. But, when you think about movies like Independence Day and Avengers, Infinity War, and, Star Wars and Star Trek, and, there's this whole sci-fi fantasy of a war with aliens and stuff, right? Like, what if that wasn't necessarily just science fiction as far as, because think about this government, right? Think about the world governments. We have the United States personally has enough nuclear weapons to destroy the world. I think it was like 5 or 6 times, and that was, back in, I want to say like 08, 09, when I was doing a debate on nuclear deterrence or whatever. So who knows what it is now? But the point is, if we have enough nukes to destroy the world multiple times over already, we're not really facing, or we're not preparing for a terrestrial threat, are we? Think about that. If we've had enough nuclear weapons to destroy the world 10 times over for years now, why are we still building more nukes? And why do we have that many? It's not to destroy any country on the face of this planet, because we already have enough nuclear weapons to destroy the whole planet multiple times, and we've had that for decades now. So what are we preparing for? Who are we trying to, and when I say we, I mean the government, which doesn't represent us. So who is the U.S. government really preparing for? But that's another topic for another time, man. I'm just out here chilling before the games get started today. I do recognize that, I say all that about the raping and pillaging, raiding of our country, and yet my favorite team is the Raiders. But that's because, we talk about being robbed of our culture and ancestry and stuff. This is something that was passed down to me by my dad, and he's no longer in this plane of existence. So this is like kind of something we share beyond, that. So, yeah. But anyway, like I said, I'm gonna be going live with my boy Cat King Casso later today, talking about some of this stuff. And yeah, man, check it out.